So the reason for this is going to get a Hellcat supercharger, whether it wants it or not. So we are knocking off things on the list in order to make this happen. So the main goal for this series is to do this in a manner to where basically if you don't want to down your vehicle for an extensive period of time, this is your daily driver, and you just want to do thing by thing in order to accomplish a single goal, aka putting a supercharger on your vehicle. So let's do this. So we have an improved racing catch can. That's the race series, and it is freaking awesome. And we have some Blitz valve covers, but they're kind of a modified version of the Blitz valve covers that you can get on cfrracing.com, or use my link down in the bottom to Bernie, who also has these exact same ones that I got from. So they will come with 5/8 quick connect or Bundy fittings on them, which I changed out for some AN12 monster fittings. I'm going to have zero problem flowing out of my engine to get rid of any type of crankcase gases that may need to expel out of this motor. Especially when it comes to boost, it will increase the amount of crankcase gases that I'm going to experience. So the other thing that these things mitigated was now I have a way to add oil once this ugly thing is gone. Another thing that it fixed all this was, well, that PCV system that sucks. Here's an example of what's going through your engine, causing corrosion, and it's just horrible for your engine. But the environment loves it. So eventually I'll probably wind up taking this and I'll send it to the supercharger. Probably one to the supercharger with check valve in between it, and another one that'll go to the intake. But that's for a later date. This is a track car, right? So, thing that I want to note on this. These valve covers are great. There's just a couple things that you need to know in order to install them to not have a bad day. I had a bad day, and I had to remove this one after I had installed it. Now let me just show you what I did. So for one, I didn't have this adjusted right. So that has a jam, your neck, the fill necks have a jam nut on them. You're going to need to adjust that jam nut so that the bottom part is flush with the bottom. If you do not do that, what it will wind up doing is it will actually collide with your spark plug boot or the spark plug tube, and it won't allow the valve cover to seat all the way. The second thing that I did wrong was I tried to completely do what I said I was going to do, and I tried doing it without removing that. I had a bet, and I wound up knocking the gasket loose. So let me just show you a way on how to remove that. It's super easy, it just takes a little more time, but it's going to save you so much time. Okay, so not to be confused with your fuel line. Don't disconnect your fuel line. You do that and you don't have it depressurized, you're going to get sprayed. So all you have is you have this red portion. You're just going to lift on either side, and that part will then come directly off. Then on the back side, it has this white part. You're just going to push in on that. Now, since I'm doing this on camera, I'm of course having an issue. And sometimes it's kind of hard to push on it. Let me just show you a little trick. I'm just going to take this flathead screwdriver. I'm just going to use that flathead screwdriver in order to push on it. If I can get it behind there. So now it's on there. And just like that. See, and that just comes off just like that. Putting it back on is the same. Go in until it clicks, pull back, make sure it's on there all the way, and put your red piece back in. So if you do not do that, you're going to have an extremely hard time with that rear bolt. You will also have a hard time putting it in. So just know that if you do that, it's going to be a whole lot easier. It's going to save you a lot of time. After that, it's just basically basic tools on how to do this. And the other thing, and this is another one, if you do not make it flush behind there, you'll actually wind up colliding with your valve train. That's a bad thing. So just make sure you're doing that. And also you'll probably have an issue even getting the things on. The bolts just won't line up because it's going to be hitting shit. So let's get into the install video. I just want to give those notes that I do not go over in this install video so that you know what you're looking for and you know that you need to do that. So let's get into the video. I'm going to show you all of this, give you measurements, type of fittings, and it's going to be a fun time. So here we go. Welcome to the Alaska Garage. In this video, I'm going to be installing what is probably the best catch can your Hemi engine deserves.
Nice.
This is a piece by Improved Racing. This is their race series can. This is the half-liter option. They also sell in 0.1 liter and 1 liter for if you have place to put it. But very easy removal. I've already removed this, but I will go ahead and put it in, just show you. That holds the top in. Pull that out. Top comes off like that. That goes on like that. The top is 360 degree maneuverable for any type of hose configuration you could think of, and the bottom is the same. Has to have that out in order to do it, but that is how much adjustability you're going to get out of this. As of right now, I'm still waiting on the hoses and some fittings to show up, but in the meantime, I could start working on this. I can down the car for a little bit for this. So we have right here, this is some valve covers. This is not how they come like. Let me show you. They come looking kind of like this right here. Actually, that's exactly how they came. So these have been sandblasted down, repainted, and I changed out to where I can fit AN12 fittings in them so that I'll have 3/4 full through exactly the way I want it in order to mate up to this can. This comes with an M16 1.5 thread pitch in it and comes with those. So one of these for each side. This is a quick connect fitting or Bundy fitting. That is the M16 1.5, which is 5/8, but I wanted just a little bit more. This is the same size that you're going to find on hellcat valve covers. So just note that this is the size for hellcat valve covers. I went bigger. The thing about this can, it utilizes 2 AN12 orb fittings for your inlet. This is the setup for atmospherically venting, but I also have that piece right there that is able to bolt in directly right there. You just take the mesh filter out. This goes in there. There's an O-ring inside there that goes with it. Bolts, O-ring, unit. And that's 2 more AN12 orb fittings for internally venting into your intake manifold. This is the perfect setup for pretty much any V8 in all its glory.
Wow.
If you're curious on, well, does this can really work? I did a video on that and it got messy. This can worked flawlessly. Link to the video is right here. You can go check that out and see this thing in action and in a comparison to a cheap one that turned out messy. So that happened. kind of go along with this, some things, these are cheaper valve covers that I made work, but a lot of the things that I wanted to make sure that I had the best flow that I could out of it. That's why I went with the AN12, AN12, and also as a extra, I went with race flux, the race flux fittings that and hose that I have coming, just so that I could have more of a through port on it. You could potentially go to Amazon and get like their Evil Energy hose kits, AN12. I cannot guarantee if those are going to create a restriction. I can't guarantee the quality. I know in the past I have tried to use cheaper hose and ran into a problem. Only benefit to this is not high pressure. It's borderline vacuum, or is vacuum. So cheaper hose you might be able to get away with, but the fittings for sure you're going to want is the best flow that you can out of your engine. Everything in this video you're going to be able to find down in the description. I have links to everything, along with parts lists in order to do this on different applications or even different type of hosing setups that you might want to do. So beyond that, you have to kind of ask yourself, do you need a catch can? This is going on to a charger with a 5.7 that is going the direction of having a hellcat blower being put on it. So because of that, I am going to wind up losing my oil fill sections and also the PCV sections, which are included in the head. Well, it's included in with the intake plenum area. It looks something like this. Okay. Above that, you have to ask the question, do I need a catch can? And well, the answer is simple, yet kind of complex at the same time. Just yes and no. In all reality, you can run without a catch can, but you're going to be creating more maintenance for yourself. I'll get into that later on. But for the yes, especially when it comes to like the Hemi engines, even, well, the LS, they all kind of have a poor excuse for an oil dropout system. For the Hemi engine, you're looking at your PCV goes through your intake manifold, and it's right there and right there. Luckily, in this case, I have a reason to go with a different direction on it. It's getting a Hellcat supercharger, which means that those ports that it uses will no longer be available. Improved Racing comes in with a masterpiece. It's pretty much a one and done option in order to mitigate this problem. It's able to be atmospherically for race purposes, or for street purposes, you can plenum it into your intake. Now just note that if you are to plenum this into, or any catch can for that matter, in boosted applications, you're going to need to install a check valve so that back pressure can't go into the can if you're making it go into where behind the throttle body. It's at this port right here with Hellcats. There is a possibility, and it's just a safe measure. Also, I made a link inside the description for an option. It's not really the cheapest option, but for AN12, you don't have very many options. It's big, there's not very many people making it, and luckily, Improved Racing's got you covered there too. So for starters, let's get these valve covers installed. Just for good measure, I'm going to disconnect the battery, and I'm going to need to disconnect the evap off of there just so that it's out of the way. And I'll show you here at the car here in just a second. So for removing the valve covers is actually pretty easy, but there's a few things that are in the way. For one, this would be this evap purge line right here. It kind of just blocks to where it makes it difficult to where you got to get creative in order to get that bolt there. So optimally, I'm just going to remove this line that way so that it's not in my way. Other than that, remove your intake. It's best just disconnect it here and remove your top cover. Remove this line, and then you'll have access to all of your coils. Remove those valve covers and those coils. It's just a 8mm and a 10mm for your coils. So I'm going to get these off, and I'll get back to you. All right, so I got the valve covers on there, and needless to say, they were kind of a pill to get in there. What I found helps is to remove your lower air box and pull these out, and then I just zip tied from there to there just to kind of pull it out of the way. Didn't pull all the way out. It's just so that I can get the clearance right here that I didn't have before, so I can get to those lower bolts way down there. Took a combination of different extensions, and yeah, it was, to say the least, it was fun. But that's in there, and so now I get to work on the bracket. So it's going to be sitting right there, and those will be nice and out of the way. So let's get going on this bracket. Alright, so I'm going to connect it with a single M8 1¼ bolt. I might create a jacking point later on that I'm going to modify this with, but I've already kind of test fit it, and it goes on there pretty solid with how I have it. Kind of locks into place right there with how it is, and I've ground that down until, you know, let me just kind of show you. So this is a circle right here. So that's following the circle that where this bolt's on, and then it'll basically go like that to where I went off this, where when that was flush, that's when I know that it's in the right spot. I'm probably gonna, this is just for, this still has work to be done. I still have to smooth everything out, and I think I'm going to just do like a bend right there just so it's not such an abrupt edge on there, just look a little bit cleaner. I could actually notch that down if I wanted to, but I think this will work. So originally I made it out of wood, just I have wood laying around. This is 1¼ inch, and I will show you all the measurements on this, on what I did to make this work. I'll just have a drawing that I'll do, and it's right here. Now another thing you notice, these are just bolts that I, acorn nuts and Allen head that I found that I had. Those go in there and attach into there. Couldn't tell you what side this side is. So we have it all set up. We have the bracket in there, and we have the fittings and the fittings. And let's go ahead and get this can installed. So that installs like that. That tightens down like that. And then you have on this lanyard, that goes in like that. And just like that, can's in. Need to empty it. It's literally that easy. So I already have one of these hoses made up. I'll give you some measurements on that and what type of fittings I used in order to do that. So I have this one that goes right there already made up. Make this one, I had to wait for a 45-degree fitting because it needs to come up and go in. You always want them to bow in the upward direction or go horizontal. You don't ever want a lower bow. Okay, so we're back at the bench. This is 27.5 inches long, and then we have a, I think it's a 110 and a straight. So that's for that one, and for the smaller one, I got another 110 on there, and then I'm going to use a 45 on the other side. So that's enough of this on the bench for now. I'm going to go over and install this hose and install this end, and then I'm just going to drape it over with that in place so that I can make the mark where I want to make the cut. When I cut these, I like to tape just a little bit fat, and then I cut down the middle of the tape. That's just what works for me. Just make sure that once you're done, you take like your air and blow your hose out and make sure that you don't have any, you know, rubber particulates inside your hose that could go where you don't want it. So onto the vehicle. So I'm just going to get this hose installed, and I want to be able to use the most radius as I can in order to get that fitting. So this one's going to go right there, and then it's go down into there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to feed it into down there first. Get it screwed in down there. I'm just going to leave everything loose. So I'll get it tucked up into place. Just allows you with room to play. And another reason why I like to use I'm using race flux. So your hose comes in a roll, and it's going to naturally have a bend. So you can utilize that bend in order to shape your hoses. But if you use kind of cheaper fittings, they can't do this. But with these, they're actually able to pivot right there. Let me see if I can kind of show you. This is not loosening up the hose, but we're able to pivot right there. Now I can take this oversized hose, and it's going to go from here. It's going to go under and around. So it's gonna be kind of weird. Like I said, see how it has that natural bend in it? You can just utilize that, and with this, that's able to swivel on that. So you can just get the best fitment that way, and it's just a little bit easier. Just pays to get the good stuff. So just like these, I'm not going to tighten these down a super whole lot. This is just so I can get my measurement. And I'll get this fitting on here. And it's not exactly exact science. This is just going to be, but it'll give you an idea based off of how much I'm using on how much you should buy. So you're actually going to be buying less hose than what I did. So let's say about right there. So then this hose is going to come around, and it's going to tie in right there. So about a little more ain't going to hurt it. So about right there, or right there. So what I'm going to do, take this, which I probably should have prepped before. That's around where I want it, right there. Then I'm going to grab me a Sharpie, set it where I want it. And make a mark. Okay, and just like that, I got that cut. So let's take a measurement of this before we get too far. And that'll give you the other measurement that you will need. And this is going to work the same way. So roughly about 17 3/4 to 17 1/2. So that's going to give you an idea of what you need. It's going to be about the same if you use Bundy fittings with some, if you're using the quick connects, and Bundy fittings with the push lock type hose. So it'll be about the same. You might need just a little bit more just because the fittings are just a little bit smaller. But that kind of just gives you a general idea of what you should need and exactly how much you're going to need if you do it this way. So in order to put these on, we'll just take our tape off. And we're going to take a little bit of oil and we're going to put it inside the hose. And it's just nothing special about it, just a little bit of oil. Take our fitting off. There we go. And we will lube up the outside of that. A little bit on the threads, never hurt. And we're going to get this onto there. So the way this works is you're going to spin it in the opposite direction and it seems to go on. So let me see if I can get this. And this is, like I said, this is AN12 and it's surprisingly actually pretty easy to work with. So if you look, you're able to see that actually went too far. Reason why I say if you go too far, what it's going to do is it's going to start kind of flaring inward in there. So you want it right up to your thread lip right there. And then you're just going to take your fitting, give it a little wiggle, get it started by hand. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure that this isn't pushing the hose out. Nice thing about these is you have they have the marks on them. So I'm just going to take, this is something it'll never be seen unless if someone's really looking for it. And I just shaded in the gray part black. That way so that I have kind of a reference on whether or not this is pushing the hose out. Then we'll just go through and put this in as far as we can by hand. So now since you got it to that far, that's about as much as you're going to get it in by hand. And notice it didn't move that. We're going to start tightening it up. Now I got tape on these just so it is less likely to mar the finish. Or optimally you can use the actual wrenches for this, but I just have a couple crescent wrenches. This is the last fitting and I have yet to mar any of them, so it's working. Now when you put these on, you're going to put these on to where you have just a small little gap right there. See if you can see it on this one. So that's about how much gap I put in there. And there we go. See, have about that much gap on it. This hose is on there good. And I have zero push. So that's the proper way on how you put those on. Other than, you know, maybe using the right tools. So just like that. So I actually I changed up. I was going to do a diamond, but I went this direction just because it allowed for a bigger radius on this hose so that it wouldn't kink. Alright, so do you need a catch can? Well, the answer is pretty simple. This is the hose that came off from right there to right there. All covered in oil. This engine only has 30,000 miles on it. And this is going directly into there. That's why you need that. Alright, so in case anyone's wondering if the hood will close with the non-SRT hood, here you go.